Greetings, everyone. We had a little bit of a technical snafu, but in the proud tradition of the United States Marine Corps, we improvised, we adapted, and we overcame. And thanks for being with us today. Sorry for the delay, but it's a very proud and happy day for all of us to be able to celebrate with you all and honor the 250 years of the United States Marine Corps. We have a all-star lineup of very colorful Marines that I know you all enjoy hearing from. But as a quick introduction, I am Jim Hake. I'm the founder and CEO at Spirit of America. For those of you who don't know us, we are a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit. We work alongside U.S. troops, including the Marines, of course, as well as our diplomats and foreign service officers all over the world to provide private assistance in support of their missions. We help them represent America as a force for good, help them improve security and stability, and defend freedom in many of the world's toughest places. And all three of the Marines that I'm going to be talking to today have been and or are part of Spirit of America, so it'll be especially fun to hear from them. I'm going to give them quick introductions, then we're going to dive right in. So we have with us Lieutenant General, retired, Larry Nicholson. Larry served 39 years in the Marine Corps. I'll give a couple of mentions of his assignments there. So Larry was the commander of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Brigade in Afghanistan. That unit was awarded the Presidential Unit Citations for its actions in Afghanistan from May of 2009 to April of 2010. We'll talk to Larry a little bit about that. He's also the former commanding general of the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force, leading 30,000 Marines and sailors in the Asia-Pacific region. He is a member of the Spirit of America Advisory Board, a dear friend, a force of nature, and a force for good as well. We also have with us Master Sergeant retired Danny Santos. Danny served 20 years as a Marine Raider. He was deployed in the Middle East, Asia-Pacific, and West Africa. He has received the Silver Star. He participated and conducted counterterrorism and counter-narcotics and security force assistance operations during his service in the Marine Corps. Danny's also a former member of the Spirit of America team, where he earned the moniker Hot Seat Danny Santos. I don't know if we'll be able to get to that today, Danny, but and currently we still miss him here, I want to point out. And he's currently the Chief Operating Officer at the Critical Minerals Forum. And last but not least, of course, we have Major Grant Peehler. Grant is a member of the Spirit of America team. He's currently a regional program manager for our work in Europe. Grant is a Marine reservist presently. He has served in more than 20 countries across the Baltics, the Black Sea, the Nordic countries as a civil affairs team officer. He's also been stationed in Romania and Germany, and we're proud to have him as a part of the team and with us today. So, Larry, we're going to start with you, if you don't mind. What I'd like to ask you is, what is most important for people to know about the United States Marine Corps?
I think the most important thing for folks to realize is that, for 250 years, we've been tasked by our Congress, by our leaders, to be most ready when the nation is least ready. And I think as Marines, we take that to heart. I love the Army, Navy, Air Force, and space, cyber, Coast Guard. But I think we're a little bit different. I think we are that nation's quick response force. And I think that is imbued in all of us from your first days at Parris Island, San Diego, or Quantico. And I think that carries forward in everything we do is that readiness is something that is certainly baked into us at a very early age. And I think for all of us that are Marines, the amount of times that we have been ready to go and the amount of times that we have gone into harm's way or to any kind of crisis. Sometimes it's a humanitarian aid mission, but the ability to pick up and go, I think is unique to our nation.
Larry, I'm going to get back to you. Danny, how did General Nicholson do on letting people know what's most important about the Marine Corps? What else would you add to what he had to say?
I just want to reinforce what General could say. We were created to be there to support the United States, foreign and domestic. and be ready when the time needs. Over and over again for over 250 years, we've been there. And I just want to re-emphasize that's what the Marine Corps is made of, right? We are here to support our policies, but we always be ready to fight. Due respect to all the other services, but we are living our life on a day-to-day basis with that warrior ethos in mind every day as Marines.
Grant, what story for you best captures what it means to be a U.S. Marine?
I think the biggest story about my journey to the Marine Corps and really how I sum everything up is when I was looking at joining the military, I looked at all the options that were available, and the Marine Corps was the one that presented itself as a challenge versus presenting itself as an opportunity. You know, the Marine Corps looks right back at you if you're thinking about joining, and they say, you know, this isn't something you just sign up for. You have to earn it. You know, the title is earned, never given. And to me, that was a huge draw when I was deciding what I want to do with my life. I wanted to make a difference and I wanted to do something impactful. And the Marine Corps said, maybe you have what it takes. Let's see. And they let you give it your best shot.
So, Larry, when did you decide to join the Marines? Tell us how you got into the Corps.
Yeah, so you know, Jim, for me, you know, I lost my father at a very early age, and growing up in a family, you know, sort of a British traditional family. My mother was a Brit. I went to boarding school at age 10, and you know, and from 10 years on, 10 years old on, it was I had Marine role models. I had, you know, I certainly understood the difference between our services, and I think, you know, for a lot of young men and women, it's a challenge, and you know, hey, can I make it? Can I cut it? Am I good enough to make this team? And I think, you know, for all of us, it's about being something larger than yourself, being bigger, something bigger than yourself. And so for me, I was in college at the Citadel, and I knew then I was going to be a Marine. What I didn't know is that I was going to be a Marine for 39 years. I went in for 4 years, and I had a plan. I was going to do 4 years as a Marine and get on and go to business school and what have you. But I stayed because of the people. I stayed because of the Marines on my left and right. And again, I don't think I ever woke up one day, Jim, and said I'm going to be a career Marine. I did it because I loved it. I felt like I was making a difference, and as I was around like-minded people wearing the cloth of our nation, that I just so much respected, that I wanted to stay around.
And Danny, how about you? When, or how did you decide to become a Marine?
It almost sounds complete opposite to General Nicholson's here. So I think I have one of the most unconventional stories of joining the Marine Corps. And probably gonna date myself a little bit as well. But I was the easiest candidate for the recruiter. I walked in, first of all, I found the recruiting station with the yellow pages. So for everybody that remembers the yellow pages, and walked into this building. At the time, I didn't even know there was different services. So I just happened to walk into the first door that was open because those are the guys that were at work, and it happened to be the Marine Corps. And the request I gave the recruiter there was, I want to leave in 30 days, and can you give me a job in the infantry? I want to fight. But it was very unique because I joined my first day in the Marine Corps at boot camp was August 28th, 2001. And then 13 days later, we all know 9/11 happened. So on that day, you know, I knew what I was going to be all about. My senior drill instructor pulled us to the side, a platoon over 100, asked the infantrymen in that platoon to raise their hands and see who they were. And he told us, you will be at war within a year. And sure I was. There I was a year later after joining the Marine Corps. But I can't say, right, that I joined for a particular reason. A lot I know is that I know the Marine Corps is the best at breaking down who you are coming in and rebuilding you as a great member of society and as a Marine that understands what the values are moving forward. And, you know, I appreciate that, but that's my unique story.
Great, thank you. And to our tech team, I'll call for the photos when we need them. Thank you. Let's keep them off the screen until we get to those. Grant, what Marine Corps traditions are most important to you?
I think my favorite tradition of the Marine Corps, it happens at the birthday ball every year. And there's a ceremonial cutting and passing of the cake. And everyone, you know, obviously the birthday is the most important day of the year for Marines. It's, healthy level of narcissism that we throw our own birthday party for ourselves and make that the most important thing we do in a year. But what we really do is first we show the guest of honor our appreciation for them showing up by giving it to the guests. They get their bite. And then the second piece of cake goes from the oldest Marine to the youngest Marine. And it's symbolic of passing down traditions from the older generation to the new Marines. And it gets me every time because the oldest Marine will always be like, he enlisted in 1973, and you've got people pounding on tables and in the background. It's super motivating. You look at someone who put 4 years or 4 decades of their lives into service, and you just look with these big bright eyes, and then you see them pass the cake to the youngest Marine. And I got to tell you, the first time someone said that the day that they were born, because they always go by the age, the first time it was a 2000 birthday, there were audible screams from the audience. And every year it's the same reaction. It's still shocking, but it really is great because it shows that the Marine Corps has a vast wealth of knowledge, people who've dedicated decades of their lives to serving, but also a reminder that it's the younger generation that's going to be carrying the pack. They're going to be the ones taking the hill, and they're going to be the ones owning the mission. And we have to do right by them as leaders.
That's great. General Nicholson, what, in terms of Marine Corps traditions, what's most important to you?
I think it's the manifestation of the cake thing. And I think it is the responsibility of leaders, to coach, teach, and mentor their young subordinates, their NCOs, the young officers, the leaders. I think the tradition, General Lejeune defined it as the relationship that is like between a father and a son, or a big brother and a younger brother. But I think, the responsibility that you see of young NCOs and young officers, and the burden of responsibility that they carry, that they feel. I've seen wounded Marines in Iraq and Afghanistan, grievously wounded Marines that didn't want to get on the helicopter, didn't want to leave, because, hey, these are my guys and they need me. And I think that is, that's represented by that cake ceremony that we do every year, passing down the knowledge. But I think it is that inherent sense of responsibility to take care of your Marines, okay, in peacetime, in combat, and ensure that they're ready to continue to carry out the mission. And I've seen that so many times firsthand, and it's just I'd say that's a critically important part of who we are as an organization.
Danny, what can you add on the Marine Corps traditions that people should understand?
I think one of the strongest ones that we have and makes us stand out is our spirit of the Corps. So our powerful ideology, our unifying spirit and pride, our fellowship, and the loyalty we bring to each other. Some of the aspects of that are our continued shared identity of belonging to a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a great organization that has a long lineage of history, our common language and tradition of how we carry ourselves, why we carry ourselves that way, of always setting the standards and having pride, our unwavering loyalty of lifelong commitment to the Corps. Our motto is once a Marine, always a Marine. And then being able to be that force multiplier of having strong cohesion of units that fight for what is right for the United States. So our unwavering spirit of the Corps keeps us ready. And I love that about the Marine Corps.
I think this webinar is going to turn into a great recruiting opportunity for the Corps, is what I'm thinking. I don't think there's any question about it. So Danny, I don't know if everyone that's on the call here understands who the Marine Raiders are. So could you tell us who the Raiders are versus, let's say a regular Marine, if there is such a thing?
So every component now has their own special operations portion to it. The Marines in 2006 decided they were going to join Special Operations Command and created Marine Special Operations Command, which is on par with the SEALs, the Green Berets. So the Marine Raiders were originally established in World War II as a Marine raiding force. They were subsequently disbanded, and now the Marine Corps has adopted their tradition to have their own special operations forces called the Marine Raiders.
And we're going to go through each of the photographs that we have, one photograph for each of you. So Danny, we're going to start with you. If we could put up Danny's photo, please.
Which one are we doing?
It's not, it's going to happen as magic, I think. There we go. Okay, Danny, tell us what, tell us the story behind these photos.
All right, we'll start with the left one, I think, which is pretty awesome. So this is a picture of me and my team near the beautiful coast of Southern California, here at Camp Pendleton, at 1st Marine Raider Battalion, which was the last battalion that I was a part with. That team you see there is a team of Marine Special Operations operators, MSOT 8123. And we are conducting what is called visit, board, search, and seizure operations, which serve as a critical role for special operations doing maritime security missions. Our purpose for those is to interdict, secure, and control vessels we suspect of having illicit or hostile activity. As part of our certification exercise, each team has to be proficient in those operations. And what you see there is me climbing the ladder as the first man into a helicopter coming off of one of the ships off of the coast here in Southern California after we've completed our mission and our certification, with the rest of the team following me up, because I'll be responsible at the end of the day for counting everybody and ensuring everybody makes it on the helicopter. And that's why you see me climbing up first there onto the helicopter of the ship.
Awesome. Let's pull up General Nicholson's photo. Thank you, Danny.
Yep.
Larry, tell us what this is all about.
Yeah. So
by the way, but I have to say there was a slightly younger Larry Nicholson here, so the story will be very helpful. Thank you.
yeah. So Jim, as you mentioned, I've had the opportunity to command Marines in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan and contingencies, frankly, all over the world. But I also had an opportunity to do a very strange tour that not too many folks get to do. I spent a year with the United Nations in the Middle East, which would pay dividends for me later in terms of learning some language and learning the culture. But I spent a year as a United Nations observer in parts of Gaza, the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, Damascus, Syria, and in parts of the Sinai in Egypt. So I really didn't know what to expect. It wasn't a set of orders I anticipated, but like all Marines, you salute and say, aye, aye, sir. And so as a young major, I took this job, and there were 3 Marines a year that went and did it, different parts of the area. But I was in Gaza, and of course, Gaza has been in the news a lot. But it was a time, Jim, of great, sort of anticipation, and we thought peace had broken out. The Intifada, the fighting had stopped. And you can see there a collection of school kids in their school uniforms. But I remember the shops being full. Food was plentiful, and there was a sense of real optimism. But I think what the picture shows is, you never know what you're going to do in the Marine Corps. And again, in 39 years, I've done a lot of very, very different assignments. But this was a really interesting one, working kind of in a post-conflict environment as both the Palestinians and the Israelis were trying to cautiously move forward, but a fascinating year. And again, an understanding, getting a better understanding of the language, which would pay great dividends for me in Iraq as a commander and communicating there. And but again, a Marine goes where assigned. And again, the old saying, bloom where planted. Wherever you go, make something happen, do something good. And I thoroughly enjoyed that year, well out of my comfort zone, doing something different.
That's a great story. Thank you very much. Let's go to Grant's photo. I don't want to set expectations for this photo too high, Grant, but we have 3 great hero shots of these fine gentlemen. So the last one's coming right up here. There we go. Grant, tell us what this is all about.
Yeah, so this is actually, it's really cool because where I'm sitting right now as well makes this a total full circle moment. But this is me in the city of Narva, Estonia, while I was serving as a civil affairs team leader basically heading with my small team all across the Baltic states, working to support an armored brigade from the U.S. Army and detachments from the U.S. Marines that have come from both the West and East Coast to participate in NATO assurance and deterrence missions. This was about the 2018 timeframe. At the time, I knew a little bit of language, I knew a little bit about the area. And so our job was to go out and engage people and get them to understand, support, and really participate as appropriate in NATO operations in the country. And so we did multiple engagements with community members, with civil leaders, people in charge of critical functions and infrastructure, in addition to supporting directly the exercise. And so super cool, because serving as a civil affairs team leader in the Balkans is where I found out about Spirit of America. And now I sit here today in Lithuania, where I, for the first time at Spirit of America, got to sit down with an Army civil affairs team leader who was bringing all the different ideas that he had to me. And across the table was a Lithuanian Army officer who participated in this exercise alongside me. So we got to share war stories from 2018, way back when. And it was an amazing opportunity to see that the work you do in uniform has long-lasting impacts, and that Spirit of America is involved in some very important work that people remember almost a decade after.
Thank you. So, Grant, I'm just going to, since you brought up that great story, when you heard about Spirit of America, when you were in service, what did you think, and then what prompted you to join the team here?
Yeah, my honest first reaction was that what Spirit of America presented itself as seemed so tailor-made and so perfect of a fit for the work that I was doing in the Marines that I honestly was like, this has got to be too good to be true. I did a little bit of digging and I found all the background information, and I was like, oh my gosh, more people need to know about this. And working with Spirit of America was super simple. I was still a little bit suspicious as we went through the process, but after we did one project, I threw another idea out when the time was appropriate, and it really stuck with me how the little bit of assistance that Spirit of America provided to such a large operation really did make it happen. And without that assistance, we would have found a way to do the mission, but it would not have had the impact or the outcome that we wanted.
Well, when you mentioned that you were a little suspicious at the outset, I just want to tell a quick story about General Nicholson. You remember General Sam Mundy, of course, and General Mundy was the Marine Special Operations Command commander who commands the Raiders that Danny was part of. And we were giving a briefing to his officers and NCOs down at Camp Lejeune. And he, as part of his introduction of me to the rest of his team, he said, now what you're going to hear about Spirit of America is going to sound too good to be true, but I want to tell you it's not, and it's legal. So anyway, that we were off to a good start with that framing. So General Nicholson, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions because we have the great pleasure of having Mike Kuiper as part of our audience here, and he's asked a question. So I given that all Mike has done in service to the nation, he's for those of you who don't know, a proud member of the Marine Corps as well. Given that all Mike has done in service to our nation, I think his question should be asked here. So he says, I would love to hear the story when General Nicholson visited Nawa in Afghanistan and rode a bicycle down the street with the kids. Because of the gains we made with Spirit of America, we had just calmed down the area and helped open the schools with the help of Spirit of America. So how was your maiden voyage on that bicycle in Nawa, General Nicholson?
No, that was just one of those special moments in a special place with a special battalion. Again, all of our battalions in Second Meb, did a phenomenal job. But there was something about there was something magical going on in the Nawa district area, and it started with 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, and that team. They got it. I mean, I think our kind of motto going into Helmand was hunting and helping. Every day we're going to go hunting and we're going to kill the enemy. But we're also going to have a hand outstretched, and we're going to be able to help. And again, Jim, I'll tell the 30-second story, but we were after the epic battle in Fallujah, after Al-Fajr, and we started trying to put the town back together. 400,000 people. Again, at the height of the battle, we think there was probably about 30,000 people left in the city. The elderly, the infirmed, and the enemy, and trying to sort all that out took some time. But at the end of the day, we started having to put the town back together. And we were the local leaders were trying to encourage us to open schools and get the lights back on, and so we're all kind of out of our comfort zone doing things that and at the same time going after any enemy remnants there, and that's when we built a police force, but it got cold, and all the police force had was short sleeve shirts, and I remember talking with Brigadier General Dunford. I said, I can't keep the cops out. We had people sending home for sweatshirts, and I remember seeing a cop walking down the street wearing a San Francisco 49er starter jacket because somebody's family had sent that to him. But Joe Dunford said, "Hey, call this guy Jim Hake and Spirit of America," and I'd never heard of either, and tell him what you need. And I got a hold of you, and I think you sent me 300 or 400 of those, beautiful weather-resistant fleece-lined coats that said police on the back in English and Arabic, and they're probably still wearing those today. Flash forward into Afghanistan, our ability to get into those towns, and yes, we were very good at going out and finding and killing the enemy, and that's what we ought to be good at. But we also understood that unemployed young men are a problem, and if you can get them back to work, that's a great thing. That's less incentive for them to go plant IEDs. But I think the Spirit of America investment for me, the demining, the things that you helped us do in Afghanistan, allowed me to go into a place like Nawa and hop on a bike with a bunch of kids, and again showing kind of a different side of a little bit of humanity about us. But again, a special place, special things going on when Marines had the opportunity. But for us, it was hunting and helping, and that was a day where we were helping.
Well, it was working with and supporting the Marines in Nawa, the 1-5 back in the day. Mike Kuiper, I think, Mike, you were a lieutenant at the time. Captain Gus Biggio, if I remember correctly, and Colonel Bill McCullough. So the relationship there, when they all came back to Camp Pendleton, we got together, and those discussions we had about how to make the most of what Spirit of America could do, those discussions are what led to our on-the-ground program, which we have had ever since, where our field personnel were deployed. They're working alongside Marines, soldiers, sailors, and so forth. So that relationship, that story of the bicycle had huge implications for the organization. So I'm glad you brought that up, Mike. Thank you. So General Nicholson, one other question for you. You've had the experience of commanding your son, Andrew, in Iraq, and then serving alongside your son, Kevin, in Afghanistan. What were those experiences like? I mean, you talk about, the mentorship of Marines. So you have your son's in there with you. How was that different?
I think, father, son, father, daughter, the parent kid relationship in the Marine Corps is not unique. I can't tell you how many sergeants, majors kids or colonels kids I dealt with, first sergeants kids that I served with, over 39 years. But I think what was unique about that experience was I got a chance to go on patrol, live combat patrols with both of my sons, and one in Iraq and one in Fallujah when they were both young lieutenants. People ask me, well, how weird was it? And my wife was probably more interested in it than anything, and the sense was, hey, I was in country with them. But in her mind, I would be able to see those two young guys a lot. Frankly, I think I saw both of them, maybe twice over the 7 months that they were there. I knew they had good training. I knew they had important jobs to do, and I knew they were ready. And so, I didn't really see them more than I saw anyone else. I had, in my mind, I had 19,000 kids there, not just one or two, but yeah, it was a unique opportunity to go on a combat patrol with those two. But I got to point out my Sergeant Major, Ernie Hoopy, Sergeant Major had a son in I think 1st Battalion, 6th Marines. And when we were in Marja together, absolutely coincidentally, Sergeant Major and I are out and with one of the units in the middle of some fighting there in Marja, Afghanistan. And who did we run into but Lance Corporal Hoopy. So there is a rich tradition in our Corps of father-son, father-daughter service. But I think when you're on the same battlefield and you're chewing the same dirt as your kid, that is pretty unique.
It's really special. Thank you. Danny, would you be able to share the story behind your Silver Star commendation?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to break it down a little bit here. So it was April 2004 during the Battle of Husaybah, which was an insurgent offensive on the Syrian border intended to divert forces from the big battle that was happening in Fallujah at the time. It was one of the most biggest, intensest urban operations in Iraqi Freedom 2. We had about 600 insurgents conducting complex attacks involving roadside bombs, mortars, coordinated ambushes through the narrow streets of Husaybah. At the time, I was part of 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines Kilo Company. We fought house to house for about 28 hours. And me, as a young 21-year-old Lance Corporal squad leader, I was leading a patrol when my lead element came into direct contact with heavy machine gun fire and rocket-propelled grenades from multiple areas. I was wounded in the shoulder, taking a machine gun round to the left shoulder and a grenade to the stomach at the time. Continued to fight and realized one of my Marines, Lance Corporal Sosa Chavez, was wounded with 3 shots to the back and lay exposed in the street. I ran into the street under some fire, shot some machine gun positions down with my AT-4 rocket, and then eventually ended up dragging them to safety and consolidated the rest of my Marines that were wounded as well. We had about 3 wounded. We stayed in a consolidated position for over 2 hours, continuing to fight without any medical attention and really isolated from the main element at the time because we were on the leftmost flank of the battle. So it was so intense, we were unable to have any armored vehicles approach us. So we had to carry our casualties out another 1,000 meters to the east and eventually fought our way out on foot as the vehicles were unable to reach us. But for that, I ended up getting one of the awards, but more importantly, I ended up saving all my Marines. I waited until everybody was treated until I was able to leave and went kicking and screaming, as a lot of you might know. But, those were the lessons I learned as a young 21-year-old Lance Corporal. But, at that moment of my life, I know leadership was important, reinforcing accountability of what I said I was going to do as a squad leader, of keeping everybody safe and destroying the enemy, maintaining composure under fire, and just the unbreakable bond of working as a team in combat are the lessons that I learned from that.
Hey, can I point out something that Danny talked about?
Please, yeah.
Danny hit something that I kind of made a note about, and that is nobody powers down, no service gives the responsibility to young Marines the way we do. And again, as a regimental commander in Fallujah, the squad leader is supposed to be a sergeant. In the Army, a squad leader is a staff sergeant, an E6. So the Marine Corps says, no, our sergeants are good enough. They can be squad leaders responsible for 13 individuals. But quite often it wasn't a sergeant. It was a corporal. And oftentimes it was a Lance Corporal like Danny. And the Lance Corporal is probably someone who's been in the Marine Corps 2 years or less. And the authority we give those young leaders, whether it's young second lieutenants, sergeants, or Lance Corporals, but the ability that we power down and the responsibility that we put on the youngest, and we are the youngest service, and the responsibility we put on the youngest service is something I'm pretty sure that the Army would not even consider doing, putting guys like Lance Corporal Danny leading these patrols in the heart of combat. So it's just, if you talk about what makes us a little bit different, that is a unique difference, is our inherent trust in our young NCOs, staff NCOs and officers. And again, our ability to give authority and responsibility at the lowest level, I think allows us to act more independently, and it causes us not to sit on our helmets waiting for orders. Over.
Danny, is that, think back to yourself at that point in time, is that how you felt it as well, the responsibility that you were given at the time?
I 100% agree. One thing I didn't mention that I'll reemphasize, that one of the 3 wounded was actually my platoon sergeant. And at no time did he jump in and say, "Hey, do this, do that." He empowered me to run my squad the way I needed to, and trusted me to employ my Marines because I knew best. So that's what the Marine Corps does, and that's what empowers you to bring everybody home and to understand what the mission set, to adapt and overcome in those ambiguous places and decisions you have to make.
And in trying to picture the situation that you just described for us all, the 2 things that come to mind for me, and I want to ask you which of these is closer to what it was like for you back at the time. One is the D-Day landing and Saving Private Ryan. The other is, the movie in Mogadishu, Black Hawk Down.
I would say for me, it was more Black Hawk Down style, just because of the urban nature of where we were on the elevated positions and the type of overwhelming machine gun fire and rocket propelled fire that we had at close distances.
So did you know that you had it in you to do what you did that day?
Yeah, I will tell you, I will not hesitate. I will say that I was scared, but I knew that's what I was in the leadership position to do, and those things were going to happen. And maybe it was a little bit of the 21-year-old me think you're indestructible, which I think is the Marine Corps' most deadly weapon. An 18, 19, 20-year-old thinks that he's indestructible. So I think, I was ready for it when it came, it happened, and the decisions were made, but they were only made that way because our training is so realistic, and the time the Marine Corps puts to train you to be a leader in that position is why I think we reacted in the way we did.
Thank you. So Grant, a question for you, pivoting from something as serious as what Danny was just describing. What's the funniest memory you have of your service in the Marine Corps? Like a story where you're going, "I can't believe that just happened."
That's a very good question. I think for me, the funniest thing is really, it's just running into people. We always use the expression, it's a small Marine Corps, but running into people in the most unlikely of places. And I think one of the things that's super similar, my experiences at Spirit of America and my experiences in the Marine Corps, is that this happens so much more than you would think. The local partners that we work with who live where we're working, and the allies and other foreign nationals that we're serving alongside, they show up in the most insane places. The people that we were working with in one instance in Bosnia that I got introduced to by Danny, then you run into them walking around in Washington, D.C., at our headquarters in Arlington. And it's just, it's so strange and funny to me that the people that you cross paths with will always keep coming back again and again.
So General Nicholson, you were smiling there when I asked about the funniest story. So I'm sure you've got a couple. Share at least one of them with us, please.
Well, I think a healthy unit is going to have a sense of humor. I think you run into it all the time. And I remember, going out to a unit one time, and the commander said, "Hey, I guess they had heard me speak a couple times. So there was a young Marine that did an imitation of me that was kind of funny. We had a close call that ended up being kind of funny in hindsight, but we had a bunch of Afghan generals show up that when we first got they came down from Kabul, and we're getting ready for lunch, and so we're gonna put some chow on the table. We're feeding out of tents, and I asked the chef, "Hey, make sure we got no pork today. We got these Afghan generals coming in, and we're gonna feed them." Oh, yes, sir. We got it. We're serving chicken. Great. Perfect. Well, we're all sitting down to eat, and I'm going through the chow line, and I noticed that we're serving chicken cordon bleu. And anyway, got a little tense there as and my sergeant major's like, sure, you want me to go get everybody's pick up all? Nope, let it go, let it go, let it go. But it was just one of those. We laughed pretty hard in hindsight, but that could have been a disaster. But no one was ever the wiser. But there are funny things, Jim, that happen. And combat is an incredibly serious thing, and again, but maintaining a sense of humor, and the young Marines out there, there are crazy, silly things that happen every day, and that they keep everybody on a level set. And I think it is important to ensure that that Marines, just keep that sense of who they are, and keep that sense of as much normalcy as you can. But Marines do some crazy, funny, silly things all the time, and it's always you never know when you get out to a fob. There's always something funny going on, even under the most dire of circumstances.
Danny, I'm going to come back to you on that question for a second, but General Nicholson, I wanted to ask you, you served as the senior military assistant to the Deputy Secretary of Defense in the Pentagon from 2010 to 2012. So where would you rather be serving, the Pentagon or Iraq or Afghanistan?
I don't think there's any question. I've never met a Marine that wants to serve in the Pentagon. I've never met one that doesn't want to be in the fleet, as we call it. I think your time, unfortunately, sometimes as an officer, your time in the fleet is very limited. There's not a lot of boat spaces to say. I mean, there's not a lot of places you can be, and I think I've never seen a Marine that isn't kicking and screaming as he has to leave the Fleet Marine Forces to go to a staff job. And I think any Marine that would prefer to go to a Pentagon or any staff job, I've just never met one. I'm sure there's a few out there, but I've never met one. And you didn't come in the Marine Corps to work in the Pentagon. You didn't come in the Marine Corps, to sit in an office and hack on a computer. And every chance I get, Jim, to talk to commanders and future commanders, I tell them, get out, get the hell out of your office. Let your XO handle it. Let some of your others handle it. But as a commander, get out there, spend as much time with those young Marines on the ranges, on patrolling. Get out as much as you can, and I think your best leaders, your best staff NCOs and officers are the ones that are with their Marines the most.
So, Danny, was there any funny story you wanted to share before I had another question for you too? So,
Yeah, I'll taper this one out a little bit, but it's gonna resonate, I think, with a couple of guys. So I think one of the funniest sights I've ever seen is this was during the invasion. We were pushing up, as everybody knows, from north to south, and we finally reached Baghdad. It's been over 30 days. Everybody's in their, chemical suits. They're stinky. Nobody showered. But we were in Baghdad, and the first patrol went out, and everybody came back smiling, and we didn't know why. And finally, I was the next one to go out, and somebody whispered to me, "He's like, hey, you need to go to this area of the city because in this area of the city, there's a mortar that hit, and there's a huge pipe of water that's throwing water 20 feet up in the air and coming down like a waterfall." So we sure enough patrol over there, and as we're approaching, all you can see is these Marines half dressed under this waterfall trying to take a shower with machine guns all over as a security perimeter. But, just from far away, the scene is like, is this war? This is what the guys are doing right now? But hey, that was a priority. We took advantage of it as well, but it stands out to me as one of the most funniest things you could imagine in the distance with machine guns and half-dressed Marines with a big waterfall in the middle of Baghdad.
yeah, that must have been a sight to behold. So after retiring from the Marines, you joined Spirit of America, and now you're at the Critical Minerals Forum. So what drew you to organizations like Spirit America and the Forum?
I would say the main things. One is, I believe in support for our national security objectives. And, while serving in the Marine Special Operations Command, it was important to me to understand why operations were happening. While working at Spirit of America, it was also important for me to consider the strategic goals our service members wanted to accomplish and what couldn't be done through our national security objectives. And then lastly, as I transitioned into the Critical Minerals Forum, now taking a look at it from a higher level perspective and the economic statecraft that's happening right now, and how our adversaries are using different techniques to degrade our national security objectives is what's important to me. So taking all those things into mind and having a very large strategic perspective is important to me. And I hope that, my experience both in active duty, international relations, and in business are able to tackle those three things on a continuous basis, but always focusing on helping our great nation and focusing on supporting our national security objectives.
Awesome. Thank you. Larry, I have a pretty quick story, then it's going to lead to a question for you. So back in 2004, after, Spirit America was getting started, it was still, Spirit America was me in my spare bedroom in LA. So that's where we were at the time. And we provided, we've done very well with some financial support through an article that Dan Henniger wrote in the Wall Street Journal. That really got the attention of then Colonel Joe Dunford and Major General Jim Mattis at the 1st Marine Division. So General Mattis invited me to come to Iraq to be able to see firsthand how Spirit of America might be able to help. And in the preparation or training, as it were, down at Camp Pendleton, so that I could get over there, I had a meeting with a lieutenant, and he said, "So do you know what to do if they start shooting at you?" And I thought, I've never thought about that. I've never been asked that before. And so I thought, well, the Marines know what they're doing. So anyway, I said to the lieutenant, well, I'll just do what the Marines do. And he goes, no. You are going to do the exact opposite of what the Marines do, because the Marines are going to run to the fire. You are going to run the other way. And, ever since then, that idea of, running to the fire, facing and doing the difficult thing and not shrinking from it has been such a great metaphor for life in my view. So when you look back on your experiences, and I know there are many of them, of running to the fire, which one stands out? And it might not be actual fire. It might just be a difficult thing that you had to do and face, but what's the best example that you want to share of how you ran to the fire?
Yeah, I would just, I would tell you this, and I get asked a lot as I'm out public speaking about, hey, did you want to go to war? Did you want to, go fight? And my answer is, it's sometimes hard to say, but, probably as a young Marine, I wanted to. I wanted to test myself. I wanted to know, could I handle it? Could I keep my head when all about me was chaos? And could I function and lead and be rational when there's bullets, coming at you? And then, so I told people I probably did. Now, ask me, did I ever want to go back to war? And I think any combat veteran would tell you, hell no. So this goes back to your point there about running towards fire. I could kind of compare it to, a fireman. There's not a fireman in the world that wants to run into a burning building. He does it because he's trained to do it. He's good at it. And by doing it well, he can save lives. And that's kind of how I see us. There's not any combat veteran that would ever want to go back and to do the kind of things Danny and we have done. So I think you do it because you're trained to do it, you're good at it, and you'll save lives by doing that. I can tell you my first experience is being on a ship off of Kosovo when they started handing out live ammo. And my Marines' eyes were like silver dollars, because it's the first time we started loading magazines with live rounds and, for going into the Balkans. Now, thankfully, we never had to shoot a shot in anger, but we didn't know that. And as we're sitting on the deck of that ship and we're loading magazines, everybody was self-reflecting and thinking about, okay, this is it. This is what I've been training for my whole life. Flash forward, obviously, Iraq and Afghanistan, I think everybody prepares, for the fight. Everybody thinks about how, but I do think any Marine thinks very carefully about how will I do when that fire starts coming at me? How will I respond? How will I react? And we talk about mom apple pie and the girl next door, but when it comes down to it, it's I don't want to let my Marines down. I don't want to let the guy on my left and my right. Okay, these are the most important people in the world to me right now, because these are the guys I'm going in combat with. And not letting your teammate down, being there for your brothers and sisters, I think is still the most important thing. The reliability and the trust that Marines have in one another through any challenging scenario, I think is probably one of our most important attributes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So you have been very generous with your time and support to Spirit of America in many, many ways. Why did you have many things that you can do in, I hesitate to call it retirement, because it looks like the exact opposite of what most people would call retirement, not only with what you do for Spirit of America, but everything else you have cooking. So, the expression that you failed retirement, I think, is a pretty big understatement. But what makes you be involved with us?
Well, Jim, I think you provide something no one else has. I mean, there's a lot of NGOs, there's a lot of different organizations, there's a lot of services out there, but nobody has packaged and built the way Spirit of America is. Spirit of America comes to the battlefield. Spirit of America is there. Again, the only authorized DoD NGO, non-neutral NGO, but the only authorized and I think organization that DoD trusts enough, based on the incredible track record of success. And I think you make a difference, and you provide something that the government can't provide. The government couldn't do for me what you did for me in Fallujah. The government couldn't do for me what you did for me in Afghanistan. And just for the listeners, we had a little town called Nowzad, which was just ripping, just thick with IEDs, and so many Marines lost their legs up there. We had multiple and civilians, and as we kicked the Taliban out, as we kicked the enemy out, and the city started to repopulate, we were having horrific IED attacks or IED events with the local kids and civilians. And we went to Spirit of America, and Spirit of America, sent us a team. Jim, I don't remember if they were French or Belgique, but they came up there not to clear the mines, but to teach the Afghans how to clear the mines, and then gave them the equipment and the training to clear the mines. And it was one of the most important things, because that entire city was repopulated, because people, again, felt safe, based on what the Spirit of America did. And for us, that meant we weren't fighting in that city, because the population came back and they didn't want the Taliban back. They didn't want any more IEDs. So, I mean, you helped solve a military problem, and that's the amazing part. You helped solve a military problem with your organization and the work that you did there. So, yeah, no bigger fan of the organization than I am, but it's based on results, and it's based on the capabilities of what your team is doing, not just in Iraq and Afghanistan, but what you're still doing today in the Philippines and Ukraine and Taiwan and so many other places I haven't named.
Well, thank you, General Nicholson. That's a great way to close our conversation. So I want to just one more word about the Marines. Without the Marines, there would be no Spirit of America today. That is a statement of fact. It's not an overstatement at all. The first two projects we did were in support of Marines back in 2003, the summer of 2003. Al Burgard and David Couvillon. And if you know Couvillon from Louisiana, he pronounced it more like David Couvillon, something like that, I think. And Couve introduced me to then Colonel Joe Dunford, who set up a meeting with Major General Jim Mattis. And as fate would have it, we stayed in touch, worked together over the years from 2003. And the two of them would go on to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of Defense at the same time. And a great debt of gratitude to all that they've done to help and support the organization. So no U.S. Marines, no Spirit of America for sure. Danny and Grant, thank you so much for being with us today. We're proud to have either had you on our team or have you on our team, and very, very thankful for your service to our great nation. Everyone else, thanks for joining us. If you want to get involved in what we do and, among other things, support the United States Marines, please come to our website, sign up for an email, make a contribution, and we'd be happy to have you as part of our team and coalition of the can do. So, gentlemen, thanks again. See you soon in person, I hope.
Thank you, guys. Happy birthday, guys.
Thanks,
Happy
Sheriff.
birthday. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
And Semper Fi.
Semper Fidelis. Bye.